In this video, I want to talk about measuring the interior of a two-dimensional shape. In fact, a closed two-dimensional shape. So the measurement of 2 dimensions is an area measurement. And we'll talk about how to calculate some areas in a little bit. But the way we do it, just like with any other measurement that we've been doing so far, is it's a comparison. We pick something, we call it a unit, and for the most part, the units that we'll be dealing with are little squares. So they're 1 unit by 1 unit squares, 1 unit on each side. We call them square units. We write it as 1 unit squared. We're thinking 1 unit for each dimension. We're in 2 dimensions. And what we ask is, of course, well, how many of these square units take up the same 2-dimensional space as the shape I have? So let's look at a few easy examples first. And kind of the easiest, in some sense, is a rectangle. So we want to know what's the area of a 3-inch by 5-inch rectangle. And let's be clear. Let's say our unit are going to be in inches squared. So the unit is going to be square inches. Little squares that are 1 inch by 1 inch. So let me scroll, make a little bit of room. Part B will get us to change the unit to square centimeters, and we don't have to do anything particularly hard. We, in some sense, already know how to do part B. Okay, so let me draw this rectangle that I described here. So here's my sketch of it. It's not perfect, but it doesn't matter. And we know one dimension is 3 inches. Let's say vertically it's 3 inches. Horizontally it's 5 inches. And remember, we want to ask how many little 1 inch by 1 inch squares, or square inches, can fit inside this. Well, let's mark this off. I'm just going to estimate in inches this way. So there are 5 inches along the top and 3 inches along the side. And of course what I can do is I can just see how many squares. Maybe I'll do this in a different color. I'll do it in blue. See how many squares I can make here. Remember, this is just a sketch. These aren't going to be exactly squares. But the idea, I hope, is clear. So in my sketch, I want each of these guys to be a 1 inch by 1 inch square. We have 5 inches up top, so there are 5 1-inch squares along going horizontally. And the vertical length is 3 inches, so there are 3 1-inch squares going vertically. So in total, we have, so the area, we just like to use the letter A usually for area. So the area of a rectangle is 5 inches by 3 inches, which is, well, we're just counting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 by 3, using the idea of multiplication. So this is 15 square inches. So for part A, we know the area of a rectangle is 15 square inches. And in general, there's nothing special about the numbers 5 and 3, of course. We could do the same thing with any rectangle. So the area of a rectangle, I'll just use like a little rectangle symbol here. The area of a rectangle is its length times its width in whatever units you're measuring in. Okay. So that's cool, and that's basically, that is the bare bones idea of area. If you understand the area of a rectangle, you can use that idea to find the area of loads of other shapes if you're just a little bit clever. Okay. So, the second part, well, we need to talk about the area in square centimeters now. But remember, we know a conversion here. We're told, and this is exact, by the way, this is the definition of an inch nowadays. 1 inch is literally just 2.54 centimeters. That's how they define an inch these days. So if I want to convert 15 square inches into square centimeters, well, let me think about this. I'm going to draw roughly a square inch here. So that's 1 inch by 1 inch. So if we want to convert to square centimeters, well, we have to convert each dimension. So we have to convert the horizontal dimension from inches to centimeters and the vertical dimension from inches to centimeters. So we need to do 2 inch to centimeter conversions since we have 2 dimensions here, inch by inch, inch squared. So let's do it. Let's convert the first dimension. Remember, we want to convert to centimeters squared. So we put inches down the bottom. So we know 1 inch is the same as 2.54 centimeters. That converts one of our dimensions. And you can imagine one of these inches gets canceled with that inch. And let's convert again for the other dimension. 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. So one of these is for the horizontal direction, and the other one is for the vertical direction. And we just have to do a little bit of multiplication here. So our units all line up. We can see that we have inch and inch in our denominator here, which cancel off with both inches, inch squared, in our numerator, and we're left with centimeter times centimeter, which is centimeter squared. And finally, if we multiply 15 by 2.54 by 2.54, you can check, we get exactly 96.774 centimeters squared. So if instead of dividing our rectangle into square inches, if we divided them into smaller units, in fact square centimeters, because 2.54 centimeters is 1 inch, if the squares were smaller and they were square centimeters, then it would take 96.774 of these square centimeters to fill in the same area as our rectangle here. And quickly, the area of a square is very easy. If you know the area of a rectangle, well, the square is a type of rectangle. It's a type of rectangle where the length equals the width. We just call it the side length, S. And so, since we know the area of a rectangle, the area of a square is going to be the same thing. It's going to be length times width, but they're the same thing, so it's S times S, which is S squared, whatever square units we're measuring in. So, just quickly, the area of a, let's say, 6.2 meter square, and I'm being kind of sloppy here. This is our side length. Is the following. Oh, I should do that in black. Is the following. The area of our square is 6.2, whatever that is, squared. And our units are meters squared, since our measurement here is in meters. So I just need to figure out what that is. 6.2 times 6.2. That's going to be 1, 2, 4. This is going to be 2, 3, 7. We add, we get 3, 8, 4, 4, we have 2 decimals, so we move the decimal place 2 places, so it's 38.44. So this is 38.44 meters squared. Nothing particularly hard there.